Hey, howdy gamers, how we doing today, huh? Oh man, I am pumped to finally have a podcast episode that I'm recording in front of a camera that I can upload to YouTube. Thank you, Nyan, for persisting and constantly telling me that that is a better idea than just uploading to YouTube. If I can get the other ones uploaded easily, I will, but that depends on a number of factors, namely whether or not I actually have the energy to do so. We have a lot to get to today, and I am already 3 minutes behind schedule, so I'm going to get straight into it. Now, of course, the first part of this episode is going to be a seasonal recap. We're going to be talking about the season as a whole, stats, narratives, the whole shebang. Leading off my notes here, the season was long and arduous with lots of ups and downs. This is very, very true. Between the roster turnaround, between the struggles, between all of the hardships the league endured. And that is a testament to all of you for keeping this running and for keeping this going and keeping this passion project alive. So thank you, first of all. But once we hit our stride, we were long gone. This is true. Once we got to approaching and just after the All-Star break and we were getting into the regular rhythm of games, most nights and recaps and podcasts and all this sort of stuff, we hit our stride. We were good. We were solid for a long, long time. And I think that that's really a testament to what we have. But there were, of course, 3 notable roster turnover situations, namely Haka Quarry, an entire roster turnover, nearly lost Ryusei Red as well, as they may or may not have told publicly. I think I have, so this isn't too damning. But they approached me after the whole situation had initially gone down and said, look, I'll play for a bit, but I don't really want to continue playing. And I asked, and they obliged to stay for just a little bit, and they found that spark. And not only did they find that spark, they found their people, they found their team, and HHQ was looking solid as ever heading into the final series. The other team with a significant amount of roster turnover was Invincible. Goob had an entire availability update mid-season that was unplanned for, unprepared, and thankfully we had Sky stepping up. So Sky, I don't know if you are watching this, but if you are, I would like to thank you for stepping up and covering for Goob. It really meant a lot to keep this Invincible team really, really exciting to watch, even in all of the struggles. And the last team that I'll mention is, of course, the Hard-Ons initially had Vanilla, and that was ultimately changed to Boo. I would like to once again apologize to Vanilla, because that was ultimately my own misunderstanding and miscommunication that led to that decision being made. Notable outliers to the roster turnover, though, there was 2 of them, namely Nerd Asian, who were the only team that had no subs the whole season. Not a single one. All of them played every game available. However, that was only 17 games because they had a forfeit. They had a forfeit down late. It was either Team Fish forfeiting to them or something to that effect. But they all only played 17 games, and it was actually awfully simple. My team, that was the only team with no forfeits, and of course, I was the only player to play all 18 games. Ringo unfortunately missed a game early on. Ozzy unfortunately missed a game early on, so they both only played 17. I was the only player this season to play all 18 available games. But next up, let's get into the statistical leaders for the season. So for the per 10-minute stats, I've just got it pulled up on my second monitor here with 20.2 KOs per 10 minutes. That's fucking insane. That's a KO every 30 seconds. On average. Mind-boggling. Is Rocky, obviously. The lows for deaths was Taro with 2.7 deaths per 10. Apple, on the other hand, 9.2, led the league. The next closest was Haru, his teammate, with 8.0. Assists per 10 was Gloomy by a wide margin, 14.0 for them. Miku in second with 11.4, aka Ace. Final hits, of course, was Rocky, but there were only 2 eligible players, I should say, that had at least 10 final hits per 10 minutes, which is already an outstanding number and should not be this common. But I guess the talent of the league is just too high. Daft, 10.7 final hits per 10 minutes. 10 games played for Daft. He definitely had a decent sample size. And Rocky, 16 games played, 2 hours, 26 minutes, 14.3 final hits per 10 minutes to lead the league in that. Damage per 10, it was also Rocky leading that. 16.3 thousand damage per 10 minutes. In second was Daft, 12.9. In third was me, 12.2. Crazy. Damage blocked per 10 minutes. This was Apple Actually, he did take Corrin's mantle right near the end of the season there. 15.1 to Corrin's 14.8. 1,000 damage blocked per 10 minutes. And healing was Miku 14.2 thousand to Gloomy's 13.6 per 10 minutes. This does not entirely, however, match the season total leaders. For KOs, final hits, damage, healing, and assists, it stays the same. For deaths on the low end, Taru stays the same. But on the high end of deaths, Apple is not the sole leader, as another player also had 121 deaths this season, and that was yours truly. I had 121 deaths, matching Apple in more time played, so slightly less deaths per 10, but still hit the high highs with him. And damage blocked went to Corrin by total, and it wasn't even fucking close. Corrin had 251,000 damage blocked on the season. Next highest was Nyan with 202. Corrin had 50,000 damage blocked over second. That's nuts. Next little bit is the advanced stats. So, final hit conversion rate, that was daft. 73% of his KOs turned into final hits, or were final hits, rather. Which speaks to the volume at which he's being deployed as this efficient kill machine. Speaking of efficient kill machine, the leader for kill efficiency rating with a plus 31% relative KER was Penguin. The least damage to the most final hits this season. Very effective at killing teammates. Enemies. Teammates if you're playing Spider-Man. Excuse me, oh my goodness. The league leaders in relative block efficiency rating, in second was Corrin with 169 plus 169%, which beat out third by over 112. That was Rocky with 55%, and with 180% positive for relative block efficiency rating was Taru, plus 180% with a block efficiency raw of 4,524. It took 4,524 damage on average to take him down. Holy shit. And relative heal efficiency rating went to Miku, closely, very, very closely followed by Gloomy. Those two have been the two top-notch supports this season by a country fucking mile. And finally, value over replacement player, although they were making a fight for it between Gloomy, Chosen, and Miku in 5th, 4th, and 3rd, respectively. The top two with 4.0 was Taru, and with 4.11, leading the league in VoRP for this season, was Corrin. The last little bit that I will give for these stats is that there's an interesting trend that I've noticed that I'm calling the double 10k club. Now, the double 10k club is for any player who, across a season, averages at least 10,000 per 10 minutes in 2 of the 3 categories of damage done, damage blocked, and damage healed. Right? So at least, for example, 10,000 damage done per 10 and 10,000 healing done per 10 would get you in the double 10k club. 10,000 damage blocked, 10,000 damage healed, or 10,000 damage done and 10,000 damage blocked per 10. All of those would get you in the double 10k club. I'm going to give you a second to guess. Of the 24 rostered players and 36 total players this season, how many of them do you reckon made the double 10k club? Three players made the double 10k club. That is an elite club. Now, who were in that? All of these were done with damage done and damage blocked. No one was able to get with the healing. The closest by a quick scour was Cat VT, who had 10.4 thousand damage done, 10.4 thousand healing done per 10 minutes, and 9,000 damage blocked per 10 minutes. Or Goob, 11.6 thousand damage blocked and 8.4 thousand healing. But no, the ultimate double 10k club for this season was 3 players long. That was with 10,000 damage done, 10.1 thousand damage done, and 10.4 thousand damage blocked was Bubs for the hard-ons. 10.7 thousand damage done and 10.7 thousand damage blocked. In fact, the difference between this player's seasonal total for damage done and damage blocked was, I shit you not, 68 damage. It's Silver. And with 12.2 thousand damage done and 11.7 thousand damage blocked, it was me. Again, I don't know how, but funny. And another funny stat that I noticed, at least the only other funny one that I saw relating to the stats publicly available, is that both me and Red, despite having played a different number of games, have the exact same amount of playtime, being 2 hours, 41 minutes, and 33 seconds. And on top of that, despite the fact that I played one more game over them, we have the exact same number of KOs, 168 on the season. Very interesting to think about. But the last part of this section before we head on to my non-MVP award breakdown, no spoilers, the MVP race, team balance, and favourites and underdogs. Now, these were the narratives of the season. And initially, at the very least, the MVP race was heavily favouring Hagahaka Quarry. 5-0 start, dominant play from Nomu, dominant play from Jeff Hells, who was also making a couple of MVP nods. But following their roster revamp and all of the mid-season games, all of those spectacular games that we saw, in particular, I always go back to Keep Yourself Safe versus Nerd Nerd Asian, and then Nerd Nerd Asian against Hagahaka Quarry to end off the season. Cinema. But the MVP race shifted away from Nomu to Rocky, and Rocky unanimously. And it's easy to understand why. Looking at it statistically, the dude was just a fucking nightmare to deal with. 20 KOs, 14 of those were final hits, 16,000 damage done, 8,000 damage blocked on nearly 50% accuracy on 3 deaths per 10 minutes. What the fuck? And 1 loss on the season? In a round 3, both teams at 99 double overtime loss? Holy fuck. So, naturally, the voters ended up favouring Rocky as the unanimous MVP for multiple weeks in a row. I will not comment on whether or not that is still the case or whether that has changed for the official votes. In fact, I don't actually know. The final votes haven't fully been finalised and cast yet, so I couldn't tell you even if I wanted to. I don't. But names that popped up in and about the MVP race, the other members of Keep Yourself Safe, Taru has gotten some love in the MVP race, Gloomy has gotten some love in the MVP race, Penguin, Corrin, and Miku all got some love in the MVP race throughout this season. Silver, Bubs. Silver over Dylan was a big one. It was really interesting to see how Silver, on a team where it was expected that Dylan was going to be like the captain. I mean, the reigning MVP, reigning champion from season 1, just banned out of the games, but it allowed Silver to be deadly. In almost every matchup, Silver got what he wanted to play because Hulk was getting constantly banned. And Red, actually, the last member of the original HHQ core, has gotten a bit of MVP love, got the All-Star nod earlier in the season, and has really made a push late in this season to put their name on those ballots. So it'll be interesting to see how that shapes out. Team balance, initially it didn't look too great. I will admit that. Now, I will admit, before I go any further with this discussion, we will discuss it a little bit later as well, is that I know I'm not perfect. Just straight up, I know I'm not perfect. But that being said, I do appreciate when people grit their teeth and bear through the struggles, because we are figuring things out. We are still literally in the second season of this concept existing. And to everybody that has had the patience, the dedication, and in particular, I want to give a shout out to all of Awfully Simple, dedicated as fuck, even though we did end up missing the final series. Apple of Doom, who kept the spark alive for Invincible, especially after he was not enjoying the start of the season. And Mira. Mira has been an absolute fucking backbone for the Runner-Back Rats, especially through all of their tumultuous substitutions throughout the season. But team balance, I'm going to say it, I think it ended actually pretty fucking good. We had one outlier team at the top, 17-1, not perfect record like season 1. We had one outlier team at the bottom, 3-15, again, not a lossless team like season 1. And then in the middle, we had 5 games separating 7th and 3rd. 10-8, 9-9, 7-11, 7-11, 5-13. Obviously, we had another great team in Nerd Asian, 14-4. But holy shit, I think we kind of cooked. All in all, by the time the end of the season rolled around and shit actually got time to settle, it settled. And dare I say, there is a chance that season 1 could have looked the same if we had more than a 7-game sample size. But I'll talk about that more when we get to the lessons learned section at the end of this episode. Finally, though, we do have a little bit of a discussion on favorites and underdogs. Favorite, obviously, at this point to win the chip is Keep Yourself Safe. 17-1, front runner in MVP, absolutely dominant season from them as a whole, right? We've seen the absolute best out of Taro this season. Rocky and Gloomy look like they've elevated to a level that we weren't expecting to see from the both of them. Gloomy, as a support, has been fucking outstanding, just unbelievably valuable to their team. Nerd Asian, also a favorite to win it, being the only team that has knocked off Keep Yourself Safe. That first qualifying final is going to be fucking cinema. I think at this point that's set for Monday. I am not locking that in, but I think that it is set for Monday. Underdogs, though, Haga Quarry has proven to be a threat time and time again. If they're in rhythm facing off against Nerd Asian, well, they've beaten them before, and they've beaten them recently. And if they're in rhythm and they're facing off against Keep Yourself Safe, well, they're definitely a chance. They've got a number of tricks in their hat that they can pull out. And I don't think that Keep Yourself Safe is necessarily going to be prepared for them. Maybe they will, though. Their game planning has been on motherfucking point. Finally, I do want to give a quick shout out to the Hard-Ons. Because they have Nyan, and basically, I have learned to never count that man out. He can turn a situation that looks darker than an ass crack at midnight into a shining fucking supernova. The dude is single-handedly one of the most influential players in the league. Whether or not he's playing well individually, his presence is enough to simply shift the tide of a battle. Now that's Aura. But when we get back, we're going to be talking about my votes for the awards this season. Alrighty, just took 5 there. Well, first off, I want to talk about eligibility, because the important factor is that players were only eligible for MVP if they played at least 70% of their team's games. That also applies to, by extension, the All 3-on-3 first and All 3-on-3 second team. But they were only eligible for these awards if they had played at least 50% of their team's games. So Nomu and Jeffels, 6 games, unfortunately, not enough. However, Daft and Cat had played 10 games on the season for their team. Mufin had played 9 games for the Runnerback Rats, 10 in total. All of them eligible to play for these awards. So I'll walk you through my picks, and I will talk you through my decision-making. Outstanding offensive player. I don't think it needs to be discussed another time. I put Rocky. 20 KOs, 14.5 final hits, 16,000 damage on 50% accuracy in 10 minutes. In terms of final hits this season, looking at the totals, how many is this? 7 players. 7 players had at least 100 final hits on the season. At least 3 players had 150 final hits on the season. Second and third, 152 final hits each. That's Corrin and Penguin. Rocky had 209. Final hit, forget KOs, final motherfucking hits. KOs, Corrin and Penguin were a lot closer. 295 to 280 to 257. Doesn't matter. Still Rocky. So he is my pick for outstanding offensive player. And dominant defensive player, I had to give that to Corrin. And it isn't because of necessarily the fact that he does have such high damage block numbers or such high block efficiency. Those do help his cause. But for me, it was really the last games that we saw from him against Nerd Asian, nope, against Keep Yourself Safe, he's on Nerd Asian, and Hagakakori. And although they didn't win that HHQ game, how many times during that broadcast did I tab over to him and have to say, and there's Corrin making the right decision again? Because on Mag, he would just make the right decision time and time and time and time again. And he was constantly just creating this fucking wall that couldn't be passed, keeping his support safe, keeping himself safe, which was the most important part. He's my dominant defensive player for this season. Chief clutch time player, I had to hand that to Mira. The number of times that they closed out games, especially games that mattered, like the game against Awfully Simple, especially games against Team Fish for the seeding that gave them the 5th seed, which is a huge boon. Mira was able to take advantage of those situations and make clutch plays in that. I still remember against Team Fish, the rocket dodge that ended up winning them the match. Mira's my clutch player. Now, I'm going to rapid fire the most valuable dive, poke, and brawl, because I feel like they're all fairly self-explanatory. For dive, I put Penguin. I don't think there's much else to say. That Spider-Man is pretty feared around the league at this point in time. Most valuable poke, I put Daft. Small sample size, but Phoenix, Punisher. I think we've seen a bit of Moon Knight from him, and just constant pressure. Star-Lord. And most valuable brawl, I actually put Silver. Now, that might be a bit of a contentious pick, but I personally classify Angela as being closer to brawl than to dive. And Silver has been playing a lot of Iron Fist, purely brawl, has been playing a lot of Angela, and a bit of Psylocke. And Psylocke isn't what you typically class as a brawl hero, but she does lean a little bit closer to brawl and to poke than she does to just only dive. So I give that a little bit as well. And Silver was by far, in my opinion, the best brawl player. For the most intimidating player, I personally, and I understand that this is my own biases playing into it, but you have to give me credit somewhere. I have to glaze him somewhere. Penguin was my most intimidating. Like, let's take the context of he was a Spider-Man main in Season 1. Oh, now he's added a Phoenix that is able to shut down lobbies. Oh, now he's added a Punisher that's able to shut down lobbies. Oh, and he's also got a thing if you manage to target ban Corrin off of his tanks. And that thing, also one of the best things in the entire fucking league, right? I am so much more worried about going up against Penguin than I am against players even like Rocky. Because even though Rocky is a better player and has had a better statistical season, I kind of know what he's going to do. He's going to play either Bucky to the nth degree. He's going to flex onto a diver or brawl hero, Iron Fist, no longer Daredevil, but Daredevil if he got the chance. He's learning Spider-Man to my knowledge. Or he'll pull out some deep pocket pick DPS to try and surprise you. Wolvie is the prime example of that. Penguin flexes so much just because he can, not just because of what happened in the ban save phase. I think Corrin as a teammate definitely helped him to achieve that. Plot armor, it goes to the little shit herself. Ace, you got my plot armor vote. Fuck you. You're way too hard to kill. Most impressive newcomer, I've put Daft. Initially from the season, it probably would have been Nomu. But given everything that happened and the fact that Nomu isn't eligible for the award, I had to give it to Daft. Close runner-up would be Ringo, who, in spite of all of the hardships that Awfully Simple faced, never fucking backed down from a challenge. Every single time they showed up, they put in the work, and they did it on the hardest role to play in this league. And most improved player, this might be a contentious pick, but most improved between the two seasons, I actually put Bubs. Now, obviously, he was locked to tank jail last season. Thank you, Rolox. That was a terrible idea. We've learned from that. But again, similar to Silver, in fact, both those two players are eerily similar to each other in a lot more ways than you might think. Bubs was expected to be the DPS player for a team that is led by primarily one of the top 3 MVP candidates from Season 1 who ended up being tank mains. And for both Dylan and Silver, it ended up being that their tank main was banned off of the tank that they wanted to play, so they ended up being the star of the show. And he's done that to the nth degree. Again, his Iron Fist, his magic. I'm forgetting who else he plays off the top of my head. Spider-Man, right? Being able to flex to tank when he needs to allow Nyan onto DPS. Tons of options, and his very clear performance uptick from last season to this one was why I gave him the MIP nod. When I get back from this short little break, we are going to be talking final series predictions. Final series are literally happening tonight, and as of the time of recording this, the first one tips off, assuming that it isn't rescheduled or cancelled, in 2.5 hours. So let's get some predictions out of there. First off, let's do this in order of the literal listings of them. Prelim Final 1, that is between HHQ and Team Fish. Yes, it's happening second tonight. It's just listed as PF1. Fuck you. Shut up. My prediction for this one, primarily based off of vibes. I haven't done a ton of research yet. I am going to, especially for the pre-game interviews and to make the casting a lot better. But I haven't done a ton of research for this, the podcast itself. Let me check their matchup on the season. Hagak Aquari against Team Fish were 1-1 on the season. So definitely not sold either way, but I do think that HHQ comes out on top 2-0 in two 2-1 matches. So just a reminder, all of the final series matches are best of 3 games. We have a map banning phase beforehand, where the top seed or the higher seed bans one map, the lower seed bans another, and then the higher seed picks from the remaining 3 maps. After that first game, the loser of the first game will pick the second map from the remaining 2 maps, and if we end up with 1 map left for map 3, that's where we'll be heading for the climax of that match. So, rounds, best of 3 rounds make a game, best of 3 games make a match. Yeah? Rounds, games, matches. I'm going to be using that terminology a lot in this final series. I need you to understand it. PF2, though. No, I didn't actually end up giving my predictions. I predict that HHQ wins 2-0 in the match, and both of those games go 2-1, 2-1. I think that it's going to be one where Team Fish puts up a fight, but I think that Hagak Aquari just has the better roster overall. I think they have the better roster on paper. In practice, they've got more depth, more versatility, and I'm interested to see what their strategy is going to be, and I have a couple of key questions that I'm going to be asking them ahead of this finals series matchup tonight. PF2, Run-It-Back Rats versus the Hard-Ons. That's also tonight. Should there be no issues with it, my prediction is that the 5th-seeded Run-It-Back Rats will win in 3 games, 2-1. I believe that they lose the first game 1-2, but then they come out swinging in game 2 and go 2-0, and in game 3, 2-0 to win the match, 2-1 overall. I think the Hard-Ons will have a good surprise factor. Nyan is an incredible, incredible game planner, but I don't know how much he's going to be able to hold it all together. And finally, qualifying final 1. This is slated for Monday currently. Hopefully it stays there so that these teams don't have too much time off. I imagine that Keep Yourself Safe wins this one 2-1. Now, this would mean that they lose their second game of the season overall. But I think, giving that to Nerd Asian is not an unreasonable thing to say. My prediction is that Keep Yourself Safe sweeps the first game 2-0. 2 rounds up, 2 rounds down. Game 2. Nerd Asian comes out and wins 2-1. And in game 3, Keep Yourself Safe, they lock back in on a map that's probably more favorable for them and end up winning 2-1. So, that's my predictions for the final series that are the next up to occur, PF1, PF2, and QF1. Obviously, if those were to happen, then preliminary final 3 would be between Team Fish and the Run-It-Back Rats, which is a matchup that I would be personally very, very excited for, considering how the season ended. As well as having the winner of that game play HHQ in qualifying final 2, and the winner of that game playing Nerd Asian in the semi-final, which would be insane, right? But yes, that's my final series predictions as it currently stands. When I get back, we'll be talking about the lessons that we have learned and the lessons that I'm looking forward to learning before the end of the season. And finally, we have our lessons learned from this season. Now, first off, I want to credit Ringo for this first lesson learned, a player repository that has all of the players' stats. Previous seasons will be included in the future. Heroes played, playstyle, all of that, so that everybody has a database that can be accessed at any time. That is a very, very important suggestion that I'm absolutely on board with. Everybody needs one of those. Everybody needs to be able to access it. It is vital. Game planning is such a vital part of this format. The 3-on-3 format is so much a 2-part game. It is finding a game plan and then executing the game plan, where 6v6 can be, let's figure out shit as we go along because we've got enough resources to just chuck at the problem, right? This is so much more fine-tuned, so much more minute. Now, obviously, I did mention the team balance before. Now, I do think that I did kind of cook this season. Granted, there is still a significant discrepancy between the top and the bottom teams. Ultimately, that is going to happen in a league-style competition because it is a zero-sum game. To win, someone has to lose. So for as good as the teams are going to get, the teams will be equally as bad at the bottom. And if we had everybody going 9-9 on the season, that would be fucking uninteresting as. That would just be boring as shit. Oh my god. The podcast is good, and I will be uploading it to YouTube, obviously. I mean, you're watching this on YouTube, or listening to it on YouTube. And I would like to thank Nyan for being, again, so persistent, and just keeping me honest, and keeping me on my toes about that. So, TBA, the MVP voting system, I will ask in the off-season feedback, which voting system players preferred, the officials voting in a Brownlow style, like Season 1, or a set class of voters voting a weighted ballot at the end of the season. That will be figured out in the off-season feedback, as well as the new final series format. I'm going to see how well this cooks. I do hope that it is just better than last season, because it's A, more games, B, more teams, and C, it is literally just the same good final series format, copy-pasted. Like, imagine that qualifying final 2 is the grand final, and it's literally just the same format twice. If it ain't broke, right? I will obviously toy around with more final series formats should people suggest it, and should they find a need to do so. And finally, the lesson that we've learned, and I'm going to say this, and it might catch a bit of flack, but I want you to bear with me. 8 teams, 18 games, absolutely achieved its intended purpose. Now, yes, the season was long. Yes, it was arduous. And yes, there was significant roster turnaround. However, with 18 games, we smoothed out outliers. Invincible got legitimate wins, not just forfeits. They got legitimate wins on the season, 2 of them, which is more than the Renegades could say. Shout out the Renegades, 0-7. Keep yourself safe. One of the most dominant teams that we've seen in this format ever, period, still lost a game, which is more than the Rats of Bratislava could say. Shout out ROB. And between 6th, 7-11, 5th, 7-11, 4th, 9-9, and 3rd, 10-8, there's only just a jump up to the top 2 contenders, and there's only just a jump down to the bottom 2 out of the finals. If we could get that just fine-tuned a little bit more, we're so close, we're so there, we're perfect, right? That's why I think that a draft system for Season 3 should be a lot better. Letting teams choose their own rosters and build what they think is going to work best is going to reward teams that can build effective and well-oiled machines and systems, but also will reflect on, ideally, just a return to the mean for the most part, given that everybody's trying to achieve the same goal. And I think that 8 teams just allows for the 18-game format to function better. I think that 8 teams is a rounder number, and it's a nicer number to be looking at for the season instead of 6 teams, which was a bit, because we had to, because we only had 18 retros all in all. So yeah, that was our lessons learned. And that is going to be it for this episode today. Thank you all so much for watching, for listening, and I hope to do a couple more of these before the final series is over and done with. If you'll excuse me, I have so much work to do. I am very far behind schedule. I'm going to get this one uploading and ready very, very soon, and I'll catch you all on the flip side. Bye bye.